This excerpt is called The Past and Present Dispensational Peril of the So-Called Jew, from the book entitled Elohim the Archetype, Original Pattern of the Universe, written by Dr. Henry Clifford Kinley. I will begin. To the so-called physical Israelite, Hebrew, or Jew Yahudi, the majority of these people today dogmatically insist and earnestly contend that there is but one monotheistic Yahweh, which we entirely agree is true, and his name, which is not commonly known by the Gentiles or Christendom, is Yahweh. The following illustrations, next 3 pages, taken from the book published by Life magazine entitled The World's Great Religions, we can readily see why the Jew rejects the name Jesus Christ, which is derived from the Hindu idol sun god Krishna. The ancient Hindus worshipped the sun as a visible representative of the invisible God, so-called Chris, and their religion Krishna was a personification of the sun. Furthermore, many of the Jews today do not believe, even as they did not believe over 1,900 years ago, that Yahshua the Messiah, the true physical Son of Yahweh, has already come. Elsewhere shown in this book is the proof of his visitation, proving by the scriptures his fulfillment of the law and the prophets. For the Jew not to recognize this visitation is a very serious mistake, for the very writings which he declares were Yahweh's gift unto him were contained in the law of Moses and the prophets. These writings decidedly pointed to Yahshua the Messiah, who fulfilled every jot and tittle contained therein or in the scriptures. Furthermore, because of this, the Jews' non-acceptance or rejection of Yahshua the Messiah, or his failure in not continuing to offer the sacrifice of blood for the atonement of his sins, as required by the Mosaic Law, Leviticus 9:7 and Leviticus 16:34, he is still, even today, in the depths of his sins. It is through the blood of the Paschal Lamb, the Passover, and the sacrifices thereafter continued under the Mosaic Law that typified or foreshadowed the blood of Yahshua the Messiah, which was shed for us, that we, both Jew and Gentile, have received the true atonement. The rabbinical Jews, Hebrews, or Israelites of today definitely and positively know that they are still subject to the ordinances of the Mosaic Law. That is, if they continue to deny the blood of Yahshua the Messiah. For without the shedding of blood according to the law, there can be no remission of their sins. This is strictly true as referred to the daily sacrifices and the Day of Atonement, which as a rule the Jew still recognizes, but fails to offer the proper sacrifices according to the law. The failure of some of the Jews to accept Yahshua the true Messiah can be explained by taking his own scriptures and showing how Yahweh spoke through the prophets of their disobedience, carrying out his purpose throughout the dispensations and ages, even to this present time. We quote, "Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare let it become a trap. Let their eyes be darkened that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake." Psalm 69:22 and 23. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? Nay, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore shall they fall among them that fall. In the time of their visitation they shall be cast down, saith Yahweh Elohim. Jeremiah 8:12. This is the peril of the Jew. Yahweh, in his foreknowledge, was able to make the following statements, for he knew that what the Jew would do, and in so doing, the breaking of the commandments. He did sever or break some of them off from salvation because of their unbelief in Yahshua the Messiah. John 15:1-2. I am the true vine, and my Father Yahweh is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. However, we are told that Yahweh will graft the Jews into their own olive tree again, that is, if they continue not in unbelief. Romans 11:22-24. The Apostle Paul is writing of his grief or sorrow for Israel, that is, Israel after the flesh, in Romans 9:4-6, thusly, Who are Israelites? To whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of Yahweh, and the promises? Whose are the fathers? And of whom, as concerning the flesh, Yahshua came, who is over all, Yahweh blessed forever? Not as though the word of Yahweh Elohim hath taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel. Paul, speaking to the Gentiles concerning the Jews that were broken off, and of the Gentiles that were grafted in, said in Romans 11:24-27, For if thou, the Gentiles, were cut out of the olive tree which is wild by nature, and wert grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, the Jews, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, There shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away wickedness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. The fullness of the Gentiles did come in, according to the promise in AD 40, with Cornelius and his household in Caesarea, or when they first began to receive the Holy Spirit, Acts 10th, 11th, and 15th chapters. That which is a Jew outwardly is not one inwardly, but the Gentile which is grafted in by faith has become the true spiritual Jew, as explained in Romans 2:28-29 thusly. For he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Yahweh. Until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in, Romans 11:25. It is not to be confused with the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, Luke 21:24, because the times of the Gentiles began in 604 BY, when Nebuchadnezzar began to rule the world, and will not be fulfilled or ended until Yahshua the Messiah appears again the second time, without sin unto salvation, to judge the world in righteousness. And then all Israel will be saved. Acts 10:42, 2 Timothy 4:1-8, and 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17. These excerpts have been called the past and present dispensational peril of the so-called Jew, and also Peril of the Jew, from the book entitled Elohim the Archetype, Original Pattern of the Universe, written by Dr. Clifford Kinley, and narrated by Yahshuans Giving Glory.